Okay, second time's a charm. I'm telling you guys, Quora really confuses me. Maybe I should get the app, I don't know. What happens when people leave Scientology after being part of it for many years? Do they have to go through any type of rehabilitation before leaving the church permanently or forever, etc.? Okay, let me make sure I stay in the right thread this time. Well, that worked like a charm. Okay, William Strauss, former mechanics chief, Freewinds Church of Scientology, at Scientology 1979 to 2002. The Freewinds. I was in the Sea Org for 23 years, the last 16 on the ship Freewinds. I was in charge of all the mechanical repairs, and in that time overhauled or rebuilt every piece of machinery down there. Probably over 100 different pieces of equipment. I was sent off to die on Mother's Day, 2002, after I tested positive for HIV. I had gotten 13 years earlier from blood products given me while I had a bleeding ulcer and lost much blood. The ship's doctor was too cowardly, or more likely was ordered not to tell me that I had HIV. The worst part was that they held my wife for 6 months, against her will, while they were waiting for me to die. That sounds about right. The fact that they sent me to a Scientology chiropractor to be treated for full-blown AIDS, who by his own statement had never seen an AIDS patient, did not help matters. He told me not to see the real HIV/AIDS doctors, as the drugs they would give me were worse than the HIV. My wife, female, I have never been a homo. I don't approve of that phrase, but to say in a more, like in a nicer way, I have never been a homosexual. Was finally released after my father had started talking about calling the FBI. I'm assuming that his dad is not in Scientology. He couldn't be saying stuff like that. She called her sister, who worked at San Francisco General Hospital, who, by the way, operates the oldest operating AIDS clinic in the world, and she told her to take me to UCSD Hospital. Their test showed the amount of virus in my blood was too high to be measured, and my CD4 count, T cell, was 0, i.e. no cells could be found. My wife took me to UCSD mainly because it was obvious to anyone that I was going to die, and it no longer mattered whether the DRUGFs killed me. Either way, I would be dead. I accidentally started reading this promoted crap about a psychic. Okay, I'm gonna slowly scroll. Because I really don't understand Quora, you guys. Okay, you guys, I apologize for scrolling so much, but apparently there are no answers to the original question about Scientology here. So I'm going to keep scrolling until I get to something that's related that I want to read. Hopefully I haven't read it already. Okay, what is your story of leaving Scientology? Jim Gunn. 3 years as a Scientologist. You guys know what I feel about that. So, not that he's a bad person, but as long as he doesn't exalt himself and put himself up on a big throne, that he's above everyone, you know, just like statues and non-profit organizations that are named after these so-called heroes. I'm sick of it already. It makes me want to puke. Okay, so Jim Gunn says, I walked out early one evening. When I got home, my phone was ringing. It was them. So I called the phone company and asked for a new unlisted telephone number. This is back in the day. The lady told me that they would send me a form that I would have to return and that it would take 6 to 8 weeks for a new number to be issued. I couldn't wait that long, so I asked for her supervisor. When the supervisor came to the phone, I asked if there was some way the process could occur more quickly. She apologized and said that it would be impossible. At that point, I blurted out, "But I just left Scientology and I can't wait that long." She replied, "You just left Scientology?" I said, "Yes." She replied, "One moment, please." A minute later, she came on the line with my new unlisted number. It was nice to get some sympathy. That was Jim Gunn. That was good. Okay, all this. Okay, here's another one. This is related, so. What happens if we leave the Church of Scientology? Works at schools. From Johann von Niesel. One of the practices of the Church of Scientology is auditing. Auditing involves going through unpleasant memories, trauma, like trauma-based mind control, and trying to remove any stress you feel from them. Unpleasant memories usually include events that serve nicely as blackmail material. Facts. Auditors keep files, like child auditors, of blackmail material for every member if you leave. The church will either threaten or go ahead with releasing this material to damage your reputation. I'll just click on it for a minute, since I actually have a subscription to the Washington Post. How Scientology controls John Travolta and Tom Cruise, according to Going Clear. The church used to be known for harassing former members. Used to be. With more intense scrutiny of their behavior in recent years, this harassment has slowed, but it has not stopped completely. As a commenter pointed out, any former Scientologist complaining about the organization will be dismissed by claiming they are part of an anti-Scientology campaign or a criminal. Okay, rest in peace to Jefferson Hawkins, former ex-Scientologist, now whistleblower. 3 years ago, I was a Scientologist for 35 years and a Sea Org member for most of that time. I worked at Scientology's international headquarters, that's the INT base, for 18 years. I was personally commended by Hubbard on more than one occasion for my work. In the 1980s, I conceived and ran a Dianetics campaign that kicked off an unprecedented boom in Scientology. I was about as dedicated as you could get. So why did I leave? I think when he started getting physically abused, maybe, I don't know. Scientology promotes that they are working to create a world without insanity. Well then, you would expect their headquarters to be the sanest place on the planet. But it was quite the opposite. The place was the most insane and abusive place you could imagine. Verbal and physical abuse was common. I was physically abused on 5 occasions by the leader of Scientology, David Miscavige, who is a textbook sociopath. I agree with that. In my personal opinion, I think little Tommy over there is a psychopath. It's intuition, it's also some things I found out. I have written a book detailing my experiences in Scientology called Counterfeit Dreams, available on Amazon. I need to read that as well. Scientology does not do what it claims to do. It does not improve anyone's life. It is destructive. Scientologists are not allowed to say anything negative about Scientology. If they do, they are declared a suppressive person and shunned by other Scientologists. Once you leave, you can speak freely, which is why ex-members can tell the truth about their experiences. Scientologists cannot. They cannot say anything critical, ever. So this is one of 8 answers, so we got more. Anonymous says, yeah, believe it or not, you actually can. There are a few ways about it, though. A quick statement at the get-go through. Scientologists believe that if you are a Scientologist, an actual practicing Scientologist, and someday decide to completely remove yourself from the religion, it is due to transgressions on your part. It's like an overt or withhold. Whether they are known about you, or are you hiding them? I felt like I needed to get that out of the way first. 1. The first way you can leave. Stop going into a church. Stop accepting their phone calls. Stop accepting their emails. If you don't contact them, if you don't answer them, at some point, either sooner or later, they will stop reaching out to you. Realize, however, though, with the second paragraph above, they will try to contact you as they believe if you are leaving like this, something is wrong and they want to help you through it. Is what they'll be thinking. Two, you can leave. Publicly disavow and criticize the church. If you're lucky or famous, maybe you can get some publicity and make some cash bashing the church. Some people do it. Others just end up being another ex-Scientologist. Ultimately, though, it's the equivalent of publicly bashing your ex, not generally considered cool. I'm just reading this, guys. You never know when you're going to get an infiltrate. 3, you can make it known to whoever the right people are in the church that you no longer want to partake in Scientology services. This is the correct route from the point of Scientology. It may take time, and you will probably have a lot of conversations about why you want to no longer partake. And they will want to handle you as they feel, from their point of view, that you are doing a disservice to yourself by leaving. All by policy, by the way. If you are long-term many-year Scientologist and have made progress through their various levels, it will be more difficult than if you are new with only having done some basic steps or purchased some of their beginning materials. More time will be spent, from my understanding, on those who have been Scientologists for a longer period of time. I can cite sources. I went anonymous on this one. I have friends in the church and a couple no longer in the church. I don't care for any drama by Scientologists or ex-Scientologists. That has 25.7K views. Okay, Cameron Crest says, excellent question. A lot of lies are told about this by people with no real experience in an effort to protect Scientology's image, like little Tommy Davis. What's the other gal over there? Juniper. If you're looking for an answer to do what it's like to leave Scientology, definitely read answers of what it's like from ex-Scientologists. Because, well, we actually left and have the experience. If any Scientologists answer this question, keep in mind that they are only speculating what it's like from inside the Scientology bubble, where they are fed lies about glorious expansion and claims that Scientology is the only thing in the universe that can save mankind. A Scientologist still practicing doesn't know what it's like to leave. Even if they have friends and family who left, they are only speculating on what the experience was or still is. Leaving is scary. I left like most Scientologists do, in secret, back in the early 2000s. It's scary to leave the Church of Scientology after calling yourself a member. You risk losing a lot, and it needs to be done very carefully if you want to keep your relationships and livelihood intact. There's a lot to lose by leaving. It will turn your whole world upside down if you are not careful about how you do it. Leaving is very hard. It's very, very hard to leave Scientology. I'll list 10 reasons why. Reason 1, telling someone you are leaving is a crime in Scientology. And it's also like, wouldn't that create like a KR immediately, and ethics handling and, false imprisonment, all that stuff. They actually have a policy called Leaving and Leaves, which outlines very clearly that if you are leaving any Scientology organization, that you are not allowed to tell anyone because it's considered to be disruptive. This alone can stop a person from saying anything to a spouse or a family member for years. A lot is hidden from you that you can freely find on the internet or in the news, but they have you carefully programmed to not look at anything negative, and you often end up having to defend Scientology in conversations with friends and family with your own great experiences. In the beginning, there are plenty of great experiences you can have on lower services. These get you defending it easily and convincingly. I think those are a lot of the reviews as well. Most of the people who call themselves Scientologists consciously steer clear from bad news about Scientology because they know Scientology is awesome, and only a really bad person or group would say something bad about it. For them, Scientology's survival and reputation is vital to the future success of the human race. Without Scientology, the human race will continue its dwindling spiral and eventually die. So anyone speaking against it is automatically the enemy. They won't even listen to what they have to say. Isn't it interesting how Jehovah's Witness and, what's the other one? Kingdom of God and all these groups operate in the same way? Like exactly the same way? Almost like it's the same formula. Reason number 2, Scientologists purposely don't look and condemn bad information as evil. They do this for years, and as a result don't pick up on what's obvious to people looking from the outside. All the big warning signs go unseen, and they stay in for years because they have been programmed not to look and think for themselves. It's pretty insidious too, because they will immediately tell you that Scientology teaches them to look, don't listen, and make up your own mind of what's true. But they turn this off whenever they are confronted with something bad about Scientology, and it's automatic. Kind of like when you have a favorite presidential candidate and you see something bad about your candidate posted online or in the news. You can take the bad news with a grain of salt, or you can easily call it biased propaganda, and you can move on to something else. Only with Scientologists, speaking ill of Scientology is more like you took a crap in their Wheaties. Reason number 3, any negative information spoken is identified as an attack. The attackers are evil. It's very offensive to a Scientologist and unthinkable to say something counter Scientology or speak bad about it. They hold Scientology up in such importance that anything negative about it will immediately make you an enemy. Any Scientologist reading this is going to immediately know that I'm deluded about Scientology and I'm the enemy without even reading this far. The first paragraph is enough to trigger this reaction. Reason number 4, Scientologists are fed false good news from within. The view from inside is that it's the best thing ever. Anyone who would fight this or want to leave it is clearly against it. When you're in for a few years and you've done enough courses and have been to enough annual events, you've been fed so many lies that you actually think you are lucky to be associated with Scientologists and call yourself one. The international events are very well presented and are just glowing with how awesome things are going in Scientology. And then there's a video. I was laughing the other day when you hear when you hear these like little videos or films that they make, it's like so amazing, and it sounds to me like they're like in this big auditorium, you know, like with an echo. This and various Scientology news publications are the only place Scientologists get their information about what's happening in Scientology. They steer clear of any information on TV or in newspapers, especially if it's bad, and most of the time it is. But it's not surprising because news reporters are vilified in Scientology. Let's see, who do they vilify? They vilify media, they vilify doctors, they vilify psychiatric drugs, they vilify, what's the other one they love to vilify? Just off the top of my head. They're vilified in Scientology and are referred to as merchants of chaos. What I guys always tell you about order out of chaos. They create the chaos and then they create the order. Merchants of chaos with the purpose of reporting bad news and putting the society in fear. News reporters are part of the problem Scientology solves. At Scientology events, it's all good news and nothing bad is ever said. Reason number 5, the lie of expansion to keep people in. I'm sorry, guys, I'm tired. This really could be lumped into the last reason, but it's a huge secret Scientology has to keep from its members. They are actually told each year that Scientology is expanding like never before, and they soak it up with a smile. They want it to be true. That's future faking. Scientology's leader gets up on stage and lies to them year after year, and they unquestioningly believe what he says. Or if they don't, they keep it to themselves. They won't even look at what he says and verify it for themselves. If they do, they end up leaving, and it's anything but easy. I would encourage you guys, though, if you're on the fence, like, yeah, it's not easy, but it's definitely something you could do. I mean, think about people coming out of war-torn countries and creating new lives. I mean, unfortunately, in this world, we have plenty of trauma, we have plenty of heartache, we have plenty of poverty, you know, unfortunately. So there's people breaking out of that every single day of their lives. And you have to remember that what you think about, you bring about, you know. Okay. All the org parking lots are nearly empty. Former members are screaming foul. But looking from inside Scientology, it's all a big conspiracy to destroy Scientology. You know, like a conspiracy theorist. An unseen war on the salvation of mankind and the universe. The truth is, Scientology has been contracting since the late 80s, and today its abuses are being revealed by former members all over the internet. It's got the worst public relations ever, and it's getting harder and harder to defend it. Facts. Reason number 6. Imaginary enemies, us versus them. You guys, I scream this all the time. Us and them, Pink Floyd. Scientology wants its members to think that the black PR efforts of all its former members are efforts by the enemy to take down Scientology. All made up. It's an us versus them mentality. And Scientology works really hard at its events to define them and collect as much money as possible in the name of fighting them. Yeah. Isn't it funny how it's not just Scientology doing that? Aren't we right now fighting wars and taking people out for that reason? I'm just saying. They're quick to conclude that people like me, by myself, are actually conspiring with some big pharmaceutical company, big pharma, and I'm getting a big paycheck to type this. I always thought that was funny. Nobody has contacted me. I'm alone. Speaking the truth, I only get the satisfaction of hoping I may save someone's life by putting this out there. Reason number 7, you are made to feel like you are letting the world down. That's the peer pressure, right? What we call it that? And you are a bad person if you leave, despite any problems you see. Don't a lot of people think they're afraid they're going to lose their salvation? I've heard that one too. How's that for guilt? You know to the fiber of your being that you are part of the most elite group of people on the planet that are privy to some amazing knowledge, the only knowledge of life that works when applied. Leaving it would be betraying everyone. There's the guilt and the obligation right there. And the shame. The feeling of being stuck in Scientology and the pressure it can put on you to control your actions is real. And it's gotten so bad that there are hundreds of documented suicides related to the pressure of being in Scientology. There was even a suicide in my immediate family a couple of years ago. You don't have to look far. Kids have taken their own lives. Kids have taken their own lives. And some kids' lives have been taken due to neglect. It has to stop. More corroborating facts with Jamie Mustard's reveal on the baby factories. Despite financial pressure and control of who you can associate with, most Scientologists never think of leaving as a way to alleviate their problems. That's sad. Leaving is a last resort because it would cause more problems for them. It's also in your head as well. As a Scientologist, you want to think you are part of a rare percentage of the human race who really has the answers to life, and you are part of the only group that can change conditions for the better. Tom Cruise says it the best. I'm not going to play that. I'm sure you guys have seen that one. Remember when he's talking about he would be the only one that could help someone at the scene of an accident because he's a Scientologist and the rest of the people are suppressive. So again, you know in the fiber of your being that you are part of the most elite group of people on the planet that are privy to some amazing knowledge, the only knowledge of life that works when applied. The problems start when you notice something wrong in Scientology. It could take years before you see something really wrong. It's all roses and butterflies at the bottom. But try joining staff or dedicating your life to the Sea Org, like I did for well over a decade, or try doing enough services to get to the upper levels of Scientology called the OT levels. The more you get involved, the more problems you're going to see and try to explain away and have to try to shrug off. Reason number 8. No Scientologist will listen to your reasons for wanting to leave because Scientology and its leaders can do no wrong. That's very narcissistic of them. Kind of reminds me of one guy in this so-called X community, doesn't it? Well, 2, actually. I actually had a close family member when I told him that David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, physically hits and injures his staff. Turned to me and said calmly, "Okay, let's say he does," in whispers. But look at what's at stake. Wow. Members think that the leadership of Scientology can do no wrong. Above the laws of the land in Scientology and its mission is ultimately more important. David must have a good reason for doing that. He's in charge and has a huge responsibility. Yeah, and how many years have so-called the feds been after little Davy and they can't catch him? Please. Just like for 70 years they couldn't catch black tooth potbelly, alcoholic, toothbrush using little Ronnie Hubbard. Please. But it's just not the leader. It's Scientology's reputation that's infallible. Scientologist rapes kid, hide it. They can't get out. They can't get out. Handle the situation from within. Criminals and pedophiles go unpunished and they are harbored. Yeah. LAPD seems to be, we should ask them. All their little canned answers are, we have to be unbiased. We have to be unbiased. Does being unbiased include hanging around organizations that are known for criminal behavior, current and past? Make it make sense. There's an ethics doctrine in Scientology that you can take that you can't take another Scientologist to court, and any disputes in Scientology need to be settled via Scientology ethics and justice policies and procedures. Except when the little girl or the little boy gets AR'd, then it's always the kid's fault. Even though the kid is probably 1/8 to 1/4 of the weight of usually the man. Occasionally it's a woman. Please. And justice policies and procedures. Totally illegal, and it poo-poos the governing justice system in favor of Scientology justice, which lets criminals go free after the equivalent of a stern talking to and being forced to make amends. Funny how they don't get any of that old-fashioned country justice in Scientology. What's going on? I personally discovered several RAPE cases involving kids that were covered up. One was a very close relative. Isn't it funny how Serge Delmar was talking about that all the time? But it seemed like nobody wanted to align with Serge. What's the deal? Make that make sense. Reason number 9. You are being watched and reported on by friends and family, just like they did in World War II Germany. Oh, and wasn't it the little mustache guy was into the occult as well? I mean, we all know the occult just means hidden. But as you go higher and higher up their hierarchical echelons, you better believe sacrifice is required. Facts. Scientology teaches its members from the beginning to watch each other for any signs of dissent and report each other if anyone sees anyone else falling out of line or out of our agreement with Scientology. Just looking at this article on Quora is enough to get you reported to a department called ethics. Nowadays, it's easy to get you kicked out, which personally I think is a blessing. But it's considered out ethics to read bad or decidedly misleading information about Scientology. You are given an ultimatum of getting kicked out if you are found to be associating with or listening to anything an enemy of Scientology has to say. So leaving Scientology after you have done anything in it and call yourself a Scientologist isn't easy, because you are looked down upon and you are still held to their rules of who you can and can't associate with. Reason number 10, your friends and family are programmed to cut you off. What did that goofy LAPD officer, when Lyra FM had seen her father, he just was like, well, that's your decision. I don't know, if you guys go back and look at that video when Lyra had seen her father, and she's like, and then when you look back on it, technically Lyra could have walked on that sidewalk because it wasn't shut down, I don't think. Anyways, it was a freaking, the cop was just like, well, that's their decision, and that, I just want to go off on him. Wonder if he's bowing down at that one knee too. I don't know. It's only he knows. Reason number 10, your friends and family are programmed to cut you off. And like Tori's friend said, was his name Andreas, I believe? What kind of friends would those be if they could just... I forget exactly how he said it, but what kind of friends are those? That'll just cut you off like that. Facts. This is what makes it harder than anything for people to leave. Yeah, that's the glue. That's the glue right there. If you have a legitimate disagreement with Scientology, it's invalid. You are wrong. You will say you are wrong publicly and recant your bad statements, like shaming. Or you will be labeled a suppressive person by Scientology. When this happens to you, all of your friends and family will drop any contact with you. It's called disconnection. They're given an ultimatum by Scientology to either handle your disagreements or disconnect if someone cannot see Scientology as good and chooses to warn others about its destructive aspects. They are obviously a suppressive person. If you are a Scientologist and you choose to remain in contact with a suppressive person, you will also be labeled a suppressive person by association. Scientology organizations enforce disconnection by secretly telling your friends and family that you are suppressive without telling you. They even draw up official declarations or goldenrod paper filed with anything bad they can think of about you and show this to all your contacts in Scientology. It's like their pretend little police organization over there. It's a joke. But I mean, people take it seriously. Just Google suppressive person declare to read several. On seeing a declare order written on you, true Scientologists immediately choose Scientology over you. That's the groupthink. That is the group over the family, the group over the individual. It's exactly in Brave New World, which I'm going to read a little more of here in the near future. Thousands of families have been ripped apart by disconnection. Parents have disconnected from children and vice versa. The threat of having all the people you love and care about in Scientology turn their back on you is a huge vice that keeps a lot of people scared and quiet and locked up in Scientology. End of my answer. Warning, special rant ahead. I usually don't complain about Scientologists' answers, but I need to call this one out for what it is. I hope he reads this as I'm addressing most of it to him. Alex Rodriguez, Scientologist, who answered this question, would like to tell you it's very easy to leave based on his experience with his cousin who left. In case Scientology orders him to delete his answer, I'll post it here. I can't read that, it's too small. As a side note, Alex Rodriguez would be surprised to find out that out of the 36 personal staff that L. Ron Hubbard had working for him at Scientology Worldwide Headquarters in England, at St. Hill Manor in the 50s, 31 have been kicked out. They don't kick them out as much as they used to, I don't think. Also, what Alex won't tell you is that if his ex-Scientology cousin meets up with me and we decide to go to a movie together, Alex Rodriguez can get in big trouble because his ex-Scientologist cousin is hanging out with a labeled suppressive person. A Scientologist just needs to see us hanging out together and report it to Alex's local ethics department, and Alex Rodriguez will be pulled in and made to handle his cousin to stop associating with me, or Scientology will label his cousin, an ex-Scientologist, a suppressive person, and Alex Rodriguez will have to choose between being a Scientologist or having any contact with his cousin. Fact. If he chooses to remain associated with his cousin, Alex gets labeled, and now everyone Alex knows in Scientology is faced with the same ultimatum. It doesn't matter if you say you are not Scientologist, there are still severe consequences and a ton of undue influence on your family that are still in Scientology about your actions. And it's always the suppressive person's fault that the disconnection is happening. Watch your step and who you talk to, Alex Rodriguez. And even more importantly, watch who your ex-Scientology cousin talks to. If he steps out of line, you are going to have to handle him or disconnect. work at a Scientology company, have any Scientologist friends, say goodbye to all of them if you talk to anyone you're not allowed to talk to. How's that for complete authoritarian control? Very similar to what we're seeing on the internet right now. Likely, you will find out from a friend that you were declared and will never be shown the declare order. That's what happened to me. And have a nice ethics handling because I'm mentioning your name and using you as an example. Scientology will no doubt have you in a room asking you to look at how you pulled in a suppressive person talking about you on the internet. So the next time you want to jump on Quora and lie about how easy it is to leave, you should try to actually leave first. Yeah, that's a good point. But maybe you haven't seen a reason to leave yet. When you find a reason, and it's not hard to spot one these days, please, for the sake of humanity, try actually leaving Scientology and reevaluate your uninformed answer. You really have no idea what a disservice you are doing by lying about this. It's like Tommy Davis getting up on national television and telling the world there's no such thing as disconnection. Yeah. I think Tommy Davis is he was a child Scientologist as well. Maybe my answer will kickstart your exit and someday you and I could sit down and have lunch. Sorry for any trouble you get into, but at some point you need to wake up and realize that any trouble you find yourself in isn't because I'm exercising my freedom of speech. And it's not anything you did either. No, Scientology is causing your trouble. So don't get mad at me for what I say here. Get mad at anyone that wants to force you and your family's actions with undue influence. That's the real problem. Bam. And that was 29.5K views. So I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Peace.